Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrand. Joining me, as always, over there in New York City, my man, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
Oh, I am ready, Ty.
Yeah?
I am ready, which is more than I can say for a number of teams from yesterday. But I am prepared. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of questionable opinions. And I have a couple of apologies.
Okay, well, that's fair. I do too.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we are the Solid Verbal. You can find us out at solidverbal.com. You go on out there, you'll find all the details you need to subscribe to the show, to listen for free the entire season through, the entire off season through. We will be here for all your college football needs for the foreseeable future. We're also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and we've got a thriving subreddit out there at reddit.com/r/solidverbal, created by Verballers for Verballers. Dan, what a week we had, huh? Week 3.
Yeah, I would say electric. I had a wonderful time watching games for about 13 hours, and there were some unexpected moments. Hey, Big Ten.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
Hey. Ooh, I hope you got a good night's sleep. And there were some ridiculous performances. So, I mean, where do you want to start, Ty?
I want to start with the obvious. Did Tom Rinaldi steal your turnover bit?
Listen, the term stealing, I should say, is probably harsh. And sometimes people on equal planes of stupidity, like me and a lot of people, come up with the same idea. It happens. But
we got a boatload of tweets almost
a deluge
instantly upon Tom Rinaldi talking about the turnover.
I used that joke last year, too, on a show I used to do, and then mentioned it a couple times on this one. So, we love Tom Rinaldi. We love Tom Rinaldi, and we know some people at Game Day listen to the show and enjoy the show. So it's at a certain point, just making accusations is boring. And if they like the joke, they like it.
It has filtered down through the college football ground and eventually reached the eternal spring that is Tom Rinaldi.
Correct. But yes, that was interesting. And didn't we have Tom Rinaldi comedy bits as a Fantasy Things alternate or something?
We did.
Maybe that struck a chord and he really went for it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, Tom Rinaldi did use the turnover bit on Game Day. I also saw, now we may have a new champion. Perhaps we can talk about this on Wednesday, not to drivel on too long about this. Oregon State has a turnover chainsaw, which I gotta say, I'm digging it.
Well, I think they play a chainsaw sound effect on big third downs.
I know, but
I think it's already within like Oregon State canon.
No, I get it.
That the chainsaw is there. Yeah,
I get it, but it's scratching me right where I itch here. Power tools. Power tools are taking this to a new level, Dan.
I mean, what I'm looking for, let's see, we have a throne, not a great week for the throne, which I'm sure we'll get into momentarily.
No, not a great week.
I want that. I want a big regal cape.
Okay.
I want teams to really, really go for it. Life is short. Football's dangerous. Celebrate the good times.
All right, let's start where we always start here before we get into our business. Let's play your Week 3 voice messages. For those newcomers, we call them the reverbs. Have a listen.
Hey, boys, tell you what. When a motorcycle going so fast, that sucker must be going to Tennessee UTEP.
Hey, y'all, this is Caleb calling in from San Antonio.
Hi, this is Timmy calling from Eugene, Oregon.
Hi, this is John from Hays, Kansas.
Hi, this is Kim from Swanee, Georgia.
This is Bob from Albuquerque.
Here's your Week 3 reminder that 3 out of the 4 Tigers won this weekend, and one of the Tigers beat the other Tiger, so pretty much an undefeated weekend for the Tigers. You're welcome.
Dan, Ty, help. I need you to persuade people to respect the LSU Fighting Tigers. Please.
I was in attendance at Jordan Hare. Things went real quiet at the end. Coming to sunburnt probably a little definitely upset. It was a gut punch. LSU field goal at the buzzer.
I'm just wondering, is Joe Burrow secretly garbage? I'm not sure.
So, Ty, explain to me again how Joe Burrow isn't quite there yet.
Alabama usually likes cooking in a crock pot, but this game so far, they've gone full knife flipping, doing tricks with their food, Benihana chef.
Alabama's up 49-7. The only question left is will Bama cover the over on their own? Roll Tide.
So it looks like even with catching or getting all 5 Infinity Stones, you would still lose to Alabama by 7.
You know, once Nick Saban figures out his kicking game, he might really have something, though, with this team.
That's fair. That's fair. Oh, no. Oh, no. That is foul. That is dirty. The fake fair catch, you maleficent mean green, you.
Oh, my God. North Texas, stop it. They're already dead.
4-1. Yay. A bit of offense. I just hope we look that decent against Tennessee next week.
I tell you what, we got the Boise State game on. We got Auburn LSU. But my eyes are glued on this BYU-Wisconsin game. This is not the BYU of years past. Let's get them.
Like my grandfather always said, if you're going to bring them, bring them young.
Not horny for Hornibrook at all.
Rutgers got destroyed by Kansas, and it was only like the 4th most embarrassing loss for the Big Ten this weekend.
Pac-12 After Dark is a little scary, but have you heard about Big Ten After Brunch? Thankfully, Ohio State scheduled a night game. OH, baby.
This is Luke and Lawrence with a hoarse voice after a victory cigar. The Kansas Jayhawks are 2-1. I'm calling the reverb line, and it doesn't even feel dirty.
Now, Oklahoma, I see you over there playing with your food. You got to eat that corn up. It's good for you. It'll make you big and strong into a nice national champion.
Dan, Ty, Syracuse just beat FSU, and I'm on my way to Pennsylvania to get myself a Yakko's Home Dog of the Week.
And I'm about to kick my TV and watching Notre Dame. I don't know if I'm going to throw my TV out the window or decide to keep it and watch the rest of the game.
With 6 seconds left in the 4th quarter, the referees have declared San Diego State University Aztecs the winner by knockout.
This is Josh in Atlanta. I assume there won't be any commercials on this particular podcast because Tom Rinaldi must be paying you for your Apple turnover idea.
Turnover. Where'd you hear that one?
Tom Rinaldi, take the turnover to the world. Just wanted to say you guys are true tastemakers and trendsetters.
There you go, Dan. A lively bunch of verballers as per usual. 408 Verbal 1, 408-837-2251. Big thanks as always to our main man down there in DC, Taylor, who whips those together, gets them over to us in a timely fashion so early every Sunday morning.
Yes, the reverbs, when life gets you down, when college football gets you down or gets you up, always there for you.
So
we
Dan,
always care.
I want to start with LSU Auburn.
Okay.
This is a good game. 22-21 was your final in favor of the LSU Tigers. A back and forth game. Cole Tracy hits a 42-yarder at the gun, which gave LSU the win, a big win on the road. The offense looked better early than late for LSU, but altogether they led with a really tough defensive effort. They picked off Jared Stidham twice. Joe Burrow didn't quite have the numbers that maybe we'd want to see from what we'd consider, quote unquote, a premier quarterback, but I really was relieved to just watch him and feel like he was mostly in command of that offense. And when push came to shove, he really did make some big throws. What was your general takeaway watching this game?
Well, I had a few. First of all, that would be Assumption College grad transfer Cole Tracy to you, sir, with the game-winning kick. Assumption College.
Okay.
So a couple big takeaways is, first of all, this series just in general is weird. So LSU with the comeback win last year, LSU with the comeback win this year, it feels like, LSU is fine with their coach as long as they beat Auburn in a close game, which is what Les Miles was unfortunately unable to do a couple years ago. But here we are. And I think you're right about Joe Burrow, certainly not the most accurate and efficient against a good Auburn defense, but like all of our favorite junk ballers of years past on the major league level, he gets outs.
Yep.
He gets ground balls. He makes plays. Even when there was an underthrow, like a pump and go, and he still underthrew the receiver adjusted. He moves the chains. And big third downs, if it's like a 3rd and 7, he's getting 9. And there is something pretty admirable about that, even if he's not a game-changing quarterback. And Jarrett Stidham, man, for every good throw, it feels like there's 1.2 questionable ones against good teams. And if you're going to go at Greedy Williams, don't go at Greedy Williams on a back foot. It's a bad idea. Auburn's play calling, Auburn's offensive line, Auburn's pass rush. It's just, there's something about Auburn in the second half. They struggled against Washington. They struggled last year against LSU. I don't fully understand what happens at halftime. If there's if there's a weird eclipse that we're not seeing over Jordan Hare that prevents Auburn from continuing momentum the latter half of the game, it was certainly strange. But I think more credit needs to be given to LSU, especially that defense, especially up front, just overwhelming Auburn constantly. And even if they weren't able to generate a ton of offense, I think they're really well coached.
Yeah.
I think
I agree.
Offensively, they're putting these players in position with an inexperienced quarterback without a game-changing talent as a skill guy. The offensive line, I think, held up well. This is a team that even when they went down was like 21-10, and it seemed like the home team had the momentum. Yeah, LSU they seemed laser focused and believed in themselves. And that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and the Joe Burrow thing, I'll keep coming back to it. Joe Dirt, our boy, a big 4th and 7 conversion on that final drive to keep things rolling. You're right. I don't know what you want to call it, but while there might not be that true sex appeal that we've come to love on some offenses in the SEC, certainly LSU seems well coached. Joe Burrow,
it's game 3.
It's game 3. He seemed in command. This is a big win, an absolutely huge win for LSU, and I'm curious to see now how they build on this moving forward. Auburn's got some soul searching to do.
Before we move on, let us just remind ourselves, in this series, if both teams are sort of comparably talented, just take the points if it's anything beyond like
that's what I did. That's not what you did.
That I know. That's what you did. Yep. And I talked myself into Auburn and an upward trajectory against an LSU team with the newish quarterback. And just take the points no matter where it is, how it is, what it is. Take these points. That's all. And now I think Jarrett Stidham and Gus Malzahn are like 1-5-1 as home favorites. Gus Malzahn, for whatever reason, as a home favorite, not all that impressive. So I'm telling this to me.
Yeah.
File this in the back.
Don't let me interrupt, Dan.
I know. Sorry.
All right.
We can move on now.
Let's stay in the SEC very briefly. Ole Miss, Dan, scored on the very first offensive play. We're thinking, 75-yarder Jordan Ta'amu to DK Metcalf. The rest of the way, Ta'amu went 6 for 22 for 58 yards and 2 interceptions. Dan!
Guess who just got murdered?
Alabama 62, Ole Miss 7. I don't have a sound for this kind of crock-potting. I don't even have a metaphor for this kind of crock-potting, whatever you want to call it. What a total destruction of Ole Miss we saw in this game.
Ty, you like cheese?
Cheese?
Yes. Do you like cheese?
I think you could put cheese on just about anything, and it works.
For sure.
Right.
You ever see what happens to a block of cheese when it goes into a food processor? It changes, Ty, and it becomes just shredded, just destroyed into a bunch of little pieces. And I don't know who's going into the Cuisinart that is Tuscaloosa. I mean, this game was in Oxford. I don't know who's going into this team and doing anything but ending up as shredded cheese, perhaps outside of, we'll see with LSU, potentially Georgia. But Tua looked just stupid, amazing.
Tua, Dan, has been part of 20 total offensive drives this season. 14 of those have gone for touchdowns, and 1 went for a field goal. That means only 5 of those drives has Alabama come away empty-handed.
I I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I hear what other people are saying, like, it's the Ole Miss defense, and I hear you. They put 49 on them on the road against an offense that should have been able to hold on to the ball a little bit more, even against Alabama, to a finish 11-15 for 191. They spread the ball around on the ground, and rightfully so. Jerry Jeudy, by the way, if we have it.
We do have a little bit of a new sound here. Yeah.
Stepping in admirably, and I know Devontae Smith has done it as well early on this season, but for Calvin Ridley, Irv Smith, a nice game as he becomes a very solid option in the intermediate game as tight end. But Alabama at this moment, early on in the season, mind you, this is not an Alabama team with the momentum of 5 or 6 games to figure out where the talent is. And there's not much more to say about this game.
No.
But they had about 60, going into the fourth quarter. This is a team, if they wanted to, and there is part of me that believes Nick Saban wanted to after losing to Ole Miss a couple of times these past few years, to Bo Wallace and Swag Kelly, no less.
Yep.
If he wanted to, Alabama's dropping 90.
Oh, they could have put
in
up,
Oxford.
They could have put up 90 if they wanted.
66 to 3. Yeah. Oh, 66 to 3 last year, 62 to 7 this year. And I tweeted this out. Alabama in 10 and a half quarters had 173 points in their last 10 and a half, whatever point that was in this game. And Missouri's 2015 team put up 163 total over 12 games.
It was a defensive-minded team, Dan. But
it was a very bad offense, but even still, so
it's a lot. Well, look, the Bama defense holds down a really good offense to 248 yards. They had their third-string quarterback in before the end of the third quarter. They're back home next week against Texas A&M. I suspect I know which direction both of us are going to go in those predictions, but we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. In the meantime, a monster 55-point road W for the Crimson Tide. Let's move over to the Big Ten, Dan.
Okay.
Let's talk about BYU 24, Wisconsin 21. I was watching this game, watched the whole game, and I was trying to come up with a way to describe the game plan. And I settled on Squally Canada with a touch of Matt Canada for BYU.
Yeah.
Who had a lot of motion, had a lot of jet sweeps. A big game, by the way, for Squally Canada, 118 and 2 touchdowns. They mixed in some trickeration with the wide receiver pass. The numbers weren't great for Tanner Mangum, and I think if you didn't watch the game, and if you just go and look at the box score, you're inclined to think, oh, he had a terrible game. But the game plan really wasn't about him. It was about crossing up Wisconsin's defense, where they've got new faces at all 3 levels. Still a very good defense, mind you. I don't want to take anything away, but that seemed to be the game plan to me, where they were focused on putting them in weird spots, making them make decisions, and ultimately guys like Squally Canada get open, they run a trick play, they get open, they hit a key field goal. This was a total team effort from BYU.
This game struck me, and also struck me when I was watching the Oregon game as well. There are teams that do not have the most dynamic non-conference schedules. So Wisconsin beats up pretty well on Western Kentucky and New Mexico, and they have BYU. Potentially look ahead spot, I suppose, against Iowa next week. But BYU it's a legitimate program,
sure.
And it felt like Wisconsin went into this game with the mindset of, let's just do what we did the last couple weeks, and I'm sure it'll be fine, instead of specifically really having their head in the BYU game. Alex Hornibrook was lucky to only have 1 interception.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor was fine, but not dominant. The offensive line got pushed around some. And I think the most credit, and you mentioned this, was BYU's offense went directly at Wisconsin, short of that trick play for a touchdown. And they did go at the perimeter some, but they had a lot of success between the tackles. This wasn't an offensive line that by any means was pushed around by Wisconsin's front. And so that's what sort of made me think Wisconsin's head wasn't fully in this game, that they weren't fully amped for BYU, which is understandable, given that this was probably their most real opponent after 2 teams that really didn't challenge them significantly. And so for BYU to come out was incredibly impressive. To go to Madison, Wisconsin sleepwalking at times. The last drive was kind of a mess, and they were still within a field goal miss.
They had
sending this game to overtime, perhaps.
They had a run with 41 seconds left at tying this, and they pull the kick left, 42-yarder, and that was that. Wisconsin couldn't generate any big plays on offense. That was another problem.
And they got Danny Davis back, too, a significant receiver.
They couldn't generate any big plays on offense. I'm not going to take anything away from BYU. BYU had a good game plan. They executed better than Wisconsin did. This is, though, a BYU team that lost to Cal a week ago. So definitely Wisconsin taken a little bit by surprise here. I saw the streak. I forget the number, but the first loss at Camp Randall Stadium for Wisconsin in quite some time here.
Yeah, and they're going to Iowa next week now, coming off of this loss. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to get real. Nature film game. What do we have next?
We have Ohio State 40, TCU 28.
Had a good time watching this.
Yeah, this is a fun game. So it for all intents and purposes, changed dramatically over the span of about 4 minutes in the third quarter, because Ohio State got a 63-yard touchdown reception by Paris Campbell. Nice run. Then a 28-yard Jermont Jones interception return. Then Ohio State blocked a punt and threw for a 24-yard touchdown pass, all within the span of 4 minutes later on in the third quarter. TCU, for their part, this was a back-and-forth game. TCU was not at all intimidated by Ohio State. Just a couple mistakes by Sean Robinson that I think really tipped the balance in favor of Ohio State in this one. But all in all, I thought both teams played a pretty good game here.
I would say pretty significant mistake by the refs for not allowing that super cool forward pass kick return touchdown.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Come on, let that one slide, even though we clearly threw it forward like 5.5 yards. It wasn't even close. When I watched it, I was like, oh, I don't think that was backward, but let's take a look at the tape to see if they even got a little bit of a question there. No. Not really. I came away impressed significantly with both teams, obviously, but TCU I thought had a great game plan. The dam eventually broke because of Ohio State's defense overwhelming TCU later on, especially that huge third quarter. But I was impressed with Darius Anderson. Sean Robinson made a number of very big throws, but that also sort of includes big throws for Ohio State with a couple deflating interceptions. And eventually the Buckeyes just iced this with J.K. Dobbins, who runs like I imagine a Greek god who was a solidly built, a little bit short, all-purpose back would run just churning. I love when announcers say churning.
Churning.
Makes me think of butter and I don't know, whatever reason.
You could use that for the drum and fife on Wednesday.
I could use that churning, sexy, big, stanky churning. Ohio State just too much. And by the way, just keep lathering me in Dwayne Haskins. Only rushing 3 times in a big game for Ohio State, with seeing Sam Ehlinger rush for 17 times against USC. So Beck-Meyer syndrome not really happening without Meyer. And through the air, Dwayne Haskins is
so good.
Looks like he's been their starter for 2.5 years.
He's so good. 24 of 38, 2 touchdowns. Impressive to see him out there in a big game. You're right.
Slow start.
Yeah, sure. Sean Robinson, I thought, looked pretty good. Had some mistakes, but if you're a TCU fan, I think you come away feeling pretty good about the state of your quarterback position. Should also mention that Nick Bosa got hurt in the third quarter. Obviously, a playmaker along that defensive front for Ohio State. We'll have to wait and see on his status moving forward. But a nice win here for Ohio State. They've played big in some of these large non-conference matchups early on in the season over the last couple years now, and 40-28 over a TCU team that I think is clearly going to make some noise in the Big 12. That's a statement early on.
Yeah, Nick Bosa with that injury. Also, Nick Bosa was basically the entirety of Ohio State's offense in the first half.
That's right.
With that forced fumble that dribbled into the end zone and recovered by the Buckeyes. So
yeah.
Nick Bosa, is one of the 5 most dangerous players, offense or defense, in college football. He laid waste to a good TCU offensive line.
Let's stay in the Big 12 and talk about Oklahoma State 44, Boise State 21, Dan. I got this game dead wrong.
Listen.
I was dead wrong about this game. Brett Rippon threw for 380 and 3 touchdowns, which is all well and good. But the story was clearly Oklahoma State's defense, which we don't
and
get
special teams, yeah.
And special teams, right. We don't get to say that a whole lot about Oklahoma State. At least it doesn't feel like we have. But they sacked Brett Rippon 7 times. They pressured him the entire game, which changed the complexion of Boise's offense. I can't even say Boise now. You're in my head. Thank you.
I know. No problem.
They allowed just 34 rushing yards on 31 attempts. And then on offense, the story for Oklahoma State, I had talked a lot in the preseason about Taylor Cornelius being inexperienced, being behind Mason Rudolph for all those years. What would he be like when he finally saw some big game action? He has become UConn Cornelius. He has become the UConn we fear. 243 through the air, 1 touchdown passing, 16 rushes, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns running. He's a big dude. That's a tank coming at you on the football field. 44-21. If you watch this game, Boise was struggling to just keep it close. Yeah. It was like the I Love Lucy scene with the cookies on the conveyor belt, where she's just trying to keep up with it and eventually can't.
Yeah, I want to say there were 2 blocked punts, and in terms of, so nothing really happened in too eventful a way in the first quarter, but Boise was just taking on water up front on offense. I thought Brett Rippon did a really good job of trying to buy himself time. Even the offensive coaching staff had him, sprint out throws, stuff like that. But even still, there was just no, I don't mean balance in the term of like passing, rushing, equal opportunity. It was much more like there was just the internal balance of Boise State's offense there. What's the word? The homeostasis was just totally thrown. Good word, right?
Yeah, that's a big word for a Sunday morning.
Thank you. Jim Knowles in this Oklahoma State defense, especially up front, completely overwhelmed the Broncos. And while I think Boise State is still probably the best or in the conversation for best group of 5 school, Oklahoma State has an element both on offense with Taylor Cornelius's legs and on defense with how active that front was. Still a little bit to clean up in the secondary. I mean, I assume you saw that AJ Richardson catch. There's only so much you can do about that. But yeah, I think Brett Rippon dropped the ball like 4 times. It's just, it's really cool to see for Oklahoma State, as you have an Oklahoma State we can feel confident in, Oklahoma, TCU, West Virginia, some signs of life from Texas, obviously. So I like that the Big 12 is opening up more and more. That's a good sign.
Definitely. Let's stay in the Big 12. So a big win
and
here.
Kansas, Ty.
And Kansas, sure. A big win.
Sorry.
Big win for Oklahoma State. Again, at home, 44-21, a dominant win over Boise.
For sure.
Oklahoma 37, Iowa State 27. I wanted to put this one in our little A block here where we talk about our headlining games because I forgot about them on Wednesday. I felt very guilty about forgetting this game in our run sheet. Iowa State started their backup, Zeb Noland, because Kyle Kempt was injured last week. And he threw for 360 yards. Iowa State remained plucky. It feels to me like regardless of situation, they're going to fight you. And that was the story here. Even after Oklahoma jumped out to a big lead, 17-0 early.
See, I think calling Iowa State plucky, I won't say undersells or misrepresents, but I don't know if it tells the full story, because I thought offensively with a backup quarterback who a lot of people consider to be not necessarily better than the starter, but perhaps has more arm talent than Kyle Kempt. I think Kyle Kempt is a more steadying influence perhaps on this offense, but the connection between Zeb Noland and I think it's Hakeem Butler, especially if you saw his, I think it was the first touchdown catch he had where he just ran through 5 or 6 Sooners. He made them look silly. And so cool to see Iowa State replacing Duke of Hazzard, Allen Lazard with a number 1 quality receiver and Hakeem Butler, who almost drops 200 yards on Oklahoma. So there is something, and I thought David Montgomery did a very nice job early on carrying this offense across the field multiple times. Iowa State is full on pretty good. This is not a I can't be in your head when you say plucky and know what you mean by that. But I am fine with saying Iowa State's a pretty good team under Matt Campbell, even with a backup quarterback not missing
So here's
a beat.
the thing. Okay, fair enough. Then that's fair criticism.
Yeah.
Iowa State was a 18-point dog in this game.
Yeah.
And they didn't play like an 18-point dog.
No.
They never play like an 18-point
They traded
dog.
haymakers. Yeah.
It doesn't matter who they're playing. They're just always in the game. So if plucky is the wrong word for it, if we're playing semantics, then that's fine. But I too am impressed with Iowa State. They gave Oklahoma a game. Even if they don't win, they're going to give you a game. The problem for Iowa State is just that Kyler Murray is damn good.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. Let's carve out a second to talk about Kyler Murray, as Mac Brown likes to say. Kyler Murray.
348 and 3 touchdowns, 14 carries, 86 yards on the ground. A monster game for Kyler Murray. An equally monstrous game for Marquise Brown. 9 catches, 191 yards, and 1 touchdown. Your final here was 37-27. Oklahoma gets revenge on the road, wins by 10.
By the way, have you seen the Kyler Murray run? He does it. I don't know how many times he carried the ball. It was more than 10 or 12 times yesterday. But he has it made me think of Tron. Have you seen Tron? Or
I haven't seen Tron.
Even like seconds of a Tron trailer.
I've seen the Tron trailer. That was a big deal a couple of years ago. You couldn't get away from the Tron trailer.
That the little vehicle that like basically is racing on a grid, so it's like a 90-degree turn.
Yep.
Kyler Murray has that run, and he's mastered it where he'll like run straight at a middle linebacker, whether it's a draw or whether he's just improvising, and then he just turns 90 degrees, usually to the right. And the fact that he's able to do that without losing much speed, he is going to be a danger. His arm is ridiculous. He can generate a ton of velocity and sort of torque behind it without having to step in a ton. Turns out he's a bit of a baseball player, Ty.
Yeah, how about that?
But yes, he is early on, which should scare everybody, looking exceedingly comfortable in this offense. Has a couple, 2, 3 really terrific looking pass catchers, and that should trouble everybody. They're going to be exciting to watch, especially if their defense can get a couple more stops here and there.
Absolutely. And finally, before we jump into specific conferences, I want to talk about Washington 21, Utah 7.
Yeah.
Utah had chances. They were inside the Washington 35-yard line on all 3 drives in the fourth quarter. And they ended up turning it over on downs all 3 times. Had chances, Dan.
They had a large man intercept a completely ill-advised Jake Browning ball, which, by the way,
Jake Browning.
It's his 4th year, so we can't have it in the Fantasy Things draft next year. Ill-advised Jake Browning throw. Whew. Would have been wonderful.
Jake Browning, Dan, doing his best Jesse Spano on caffeine pills when he gets rushed up the middle.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
No. Not great, but I don't know. That's not necessarily all on him. Washington, especially now without their starting left tackle, has had some issues in pass protection, goes back to that Auburn game. And, for some of the nice Jake Browning throws that he does make, there are just some issues with, and Chris Peterson talked about this after the game, setting up some more quick routes or giving him some hot routes when there is pressure. And I think you're right about the other story. Utah, I think, returned with that large man interception, returned the ball inside the 10.
They got it down to the 11.
Okay, down to the 11 and had 0 points to show for that. So Utah with opportunities. I thought they did pretty good defensively. I thought the actual big story of this game is Washington's defense.
So good.
Is just, we've talked about the secondary, but even the linebacking core, Ben Burr-Kirven, which is very difficult for me to remember how to say it. Ben Burr-Kirven. All over the place, the secondary all over the place, and is probably the single best unit in the Pac-12 right now, just suffocating.
21-7 again, your final score here. Washington, to me, feels like they got another loss in them. I'm not sure when it's going to happen.
They're going to give something away.
But at least for now, this was an impressive victory on the road by 14.
For sure.
A tough place to play. Good defense in Utah. All right. Before we move on and talk about some specific conferences, we wanted to remind you that the deal, I don't want to say it too loudly, the deal is still in place. theathletic.com/solidverbal. It will get you 40% off your first year subscription. That comes out to $2.99 a month. if you go out, sign up now, theathletic.com/solidverbal, 40% off your very first year. I don't know what your new workflow is, Dan. Early on a Sunday morning, we both wake up at what, like 6 a.m., start doing our research?
It's been a while, yeah.
My new workflow now does include The Athletic.
Has to.
It includes The Athletic. Head on out to theathletic.com, see what's up, see what some of these beat writers are writing about their teams, just to get a little bit more flavor for how it feels from the inside watching this Washington game, watching Notre Dame, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
It's basically the feeling of updating your wardrobe, and you get a bunch of new shirts that are like way more comfortable, fit you way better.
Yep.
And you look at your old stuff and you're just like, what was I thinking? This is the way I should be living. And your rotation is going to change and overhaul entirely for the better. Theathletic.com/solidverbal. You can pause the show right now. We will not be offended. Pause the show, get in on the future, and then come on back. And welcome back, Ty.
Welcome back. All right. So
welcome back.
Check it out again, theathletic.com/solidverbal, 40% off your very first year's subscription. All right. What conference do we want to go to?
So there's that sub-headlining action in the ACC. There's some stuff top in the Big Ten. We had a couple big matchups with ASU, San Diego State, USC, Texas in the Pac-12.
Right.
Arizona won a football game.
Let's go to the Pac-12. Because
we usually end Pac-12. Let's start them with them.
Let's go to that San Diego State game, which one of our two heroes on the Verbal accurately predicted as his lock of the week. I don't remember which.
Was this our breakfast burrito game?
I think this was our breakfast burrito game.
Ah, damn it. All right. And I'm not going to skimp, but you can premium meat, whatever you need.
28-21, your final score. San Diego State does win. It was a letdown look-ahead spot for Arizona State with Washington on deck. Mm-hmm. Still a very weird ending in this football game. If you didn't stay up to watch it, if you didn't see the highlights, Manny Wilkins hits a 48-yard pass to Frank Darby with 6 seconds left. It gets them down to the 2-yard line. At that point, they're a touchdown back. Need to score to extend the game. Also on that play, Trenton Thompson from San Diego State goes to tackle Darby and hits him in the head, gets called for targeting.
Right.
The replay officials go to verify the targeting like they typically do. While they're verifying the targeting, Dan, they determine that Frank Darby didn't catch the football. And they overturn.
You don't hear about that much.
They overturn the completion. The next play ends up being a Hail Mary in the end zone that gets swatted away by San Diego State. The Aztecs end up winning this football game 28-21.
I don't know if there's a maximum number of things that are reviewable within the same review, but both the double review on the same play, I assume that's acceptable, but I probably wouldn't assume it's a precedent. But the act of saying, oh my gosh, this guy just completed this potentially back-breaking, game-losing catch, game-losing on the side of San Diego State, I am going to hit him hard. I'm going to hit him high. I'll get called for targeting. And instead of what was like a 48-yard completion, which they ruled an incompletion because of the targeting, it was a 15-yard penalty, a game-winning targeting because it jostled the ball loose, and now Arizona State is not on the 2-yard line. I cannot point to any specific rule to overturn this type of call, but it feels like the spirit of targeting and penalties and pass interference of like, oh, somebody's about to catch it, I'm just going to tackle them and it's going to be 15 yards to save a game. I hate echoing the Nick Saban it was like 4 years ago when he was talking about hurry up offenses, but is this what we want football to be? Is this really what we want end of game situations to be when Arizona State does something good, San Diego State does something terrible and is backwards rewarded for it? Great win for San Diego State. The rest of the game, they were solid, with a backup quarterback, and Juwan Washington was really good and carried this Aztec team down the field time and time again. But man, it left a rotten taste in my mouth watching this.
Arizona gets off the schneid. They win 62-31 over Southern Utah. Khalil Tate, 349 passing, 5 touchdowns. Good to see them finally get a win in the Kevin Sumlin era. We had Fresno State knocking off UCLA 38-14. Marcus McMaryion for Fresno. Just want to shout this out. A monster game. 1 passing touchdown, but get a load of this. 9 rushes for 16 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Fresno quarterback Marcus McMaryion. They win 38-14 over Chip Kelly. And
all I can say is yes. All I can say is yes. The viewpoint of it's going to take some time. Chip Kelly is overhauling the UCLA program. Give him a couple years to really rebuild it with his vision. Yes. But what if that's not the case? What if, and this is game 3 of a major rebuild turnaround efforts, what if losing by nearly 30 to an upper Mountain West team, granted, this is not a Fresno State is totally good, but UCLA has, did you see what the Rose Bowl looked like the end of the game?
I did.
You know how in like junior, if you're like on a basketball court or if you are in a junior league and the team is at one end, sometimes you'll see kids at the other end just tossing the ball up while nobody's on that end of the court.
Right.
There could be a game, like a pickup game of football on the non-played on side of the field. I don't know who's noticing. Things are bad, and that's okay. It may be by design that you scrape everything down to the core before you build it up. But things are scraped, Ty. Things are scraped. UCLA 0-3. And the rest of their schedule, like UCLA and like Florida State, which I'm sure we'll get into momentarily, are on a very unofficial race right now. And UCLA has Colorado, Washington, and a pretty feisty Cal team these next 3 games. I think they're off this coming week, but woof. They're my woof of the week alongside of Florida State.
All right. Washington State, Cal, Colorado, all win comfortably. Nevada knocked off Oregon State by a 37-35 margin.
Yeah, got close. Comeback.
It did. Oregon 35, San Jose State 22. Ooh. Give me like 42 good seconds on this one.
42 good seconds is more than Oregon gave anybody who watched this game. Justin Herbert is good, but he looks sloppy. He made some very nice throws. The receivers are still at best C+ unit right now. The offense is built around having a big power back with the pistol, with a good offensive line. They don't have that running back. Defensively, they're going to be good. They have a big Stanford game next week, and I am praying that this was just we are going to run 6 plays, show a bad San Jose State team nothing. We are feeling a lot of malaise, a lot of that Notre Dame, Oregon overlap malaise, waiting for a good opponent to really get up and show things. But if not, I just got 71% more worried about this Oregon season than I was before.
And finally,
I don't know how that was 42 seconds. There it is.
That works. Stanford 30, UC Davis 10. A bit of a rough start for KJ Costello, but eventually found his way out of it. He connected with JJ Arthega.
And maybe they're similar. Maybe this is a similar malaise, though Stanford's had good opponents to test themselves.
30-10 was your final. I will use that as the natural jumping off point from the Pac-12 to go on over to the Big 12 and talk about Texas 37, USC 14. Now, USC actually led 14-3 after the first quarter.
They did. Jumped out.
But then were promptly outscored 34-0 the rest of the way. USC actually finished with -5 rushing yards in this football game. A dominant defensive effort the rest of the way from the Texas defense. I think almost everything we said about USC after last week's game headed into this week's game now against Texas, against Stanford on the road last week. End up losing that game, didn't have a great offensive showing. Now they got to travel over to Austin. Just a lot to ask of JT Daniels, who had a pretty good game in his own right, but it just wasn't enough to get enough going here for USC as they end up losing pretty handily on the road to a Texas team that I thought had something to prove and did a good job.
Yeah, USC's offensive line looked like Michigan's offensive line from last year. And, Tim Drevno went from Michigan. I think he's coaching the USC running backs. Texas really stomped USC on both sides of the ball, and I tweeted this out, and I thought JT Daniels was good. He throws a really nice deep ball, and he is happy to throw that deep ball if you give him the opportunity, because the intermediate stuff is not there. The running game is not there. Amon, whatever, St. Brown was really good. The receivers are, I think Michael Pittman's good. Tyler Vaughn's is pretty decent, but the offensive line in this running game is in the toilet for USC. It really is. And we're selling USC short. It should not have been a 34-0 run. It should have been 34-2. That was definitely a safety when Sam Ehlinger's knee was down in the end zone. So let's get everything right here. I'm going to now move on to crediting Texas, and specifically Dicker the kicker, which
love it.
Real fun to say, Ty.
Love it. Love it.
Texas has, the dominant punter last year. Looks like they have a pretty good kicker right now. Sam Ehlinger throws a really nice ball. Sometimes there's still some inconsistency there. I don't think they don't have that game-changing running back, which is something we talked about in the preseason, but they're finding ways to generate points. And that's Colin Johnson making big catches. It was Joshua Moore with the big, I think he only had one catch, but it was a big one. Lil Jordan Humphrey is as talented an individual offensive player as there may be in the Big 12. He is that good, either catching the ball or with the ball. And he is just in a system that is never going to be consistently fruitful for him. That's too bad. But all that aside, hey, hell of a win for Texas.
Hell of a win.
Defense came to play.
Good for them.
Got stops. Chris Boyd why would you ever throw it anywhere near Chris Boyd? What are you doing? I think he had an interception where he just ripped it out of St. Brown's hands.
Yep.
So Texas in all phases, still a little bit sloppy at moments, but a big step up as USC is 1-2. I think Clay Helton started 1-3 a couple of years ago. So, maybe Texas is a disappearing team and USC is a growing team, and this is that perfect collision of those two ideals.
All right, Texas Tech 63, Houston 49. Dan, a lot of stats here. At one point, I looked at the scoreboard, and one of these teams, I don't remember which, was winning 35-28. And for some odd reason, I thought it was the end of the game. And then I looked and I was like, no, it's the second quarter.
It's halftime.
But there's a long way to go here. A lot of stats. 605 and 5 touchdowns for freshman Alan Bowman for Texas
British
Tech.
comedy legend.
That's right. He connected up multiple times, 13 to be exact, with Antoine Wesley, who had 261 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, De'Aaron King, 30 of 51, 431 and 5 touchdowns in a losing effort. This game went almost exactly the way I think we both expected, with the exception of I thought Houston was going to win, and you picked Texas Tech. So, a lot of stats. Anything to add?
Yeah, before the game, you're like, I think there's going to be at least 111 points. And again, Ty, you're nailing things with, 112 total points in this game. The big thing for Texas Tech, not that they haven't been putting up ridiculous offenses recently, but Alan Bowman with those 600 yards and 5 touchdowns, 0 picks.
Yep.
That's extremely, because he's a freshman. Is he a freshman? Yeah, he's a freshman quarterback. Well, it's good size. He throws a nice ball. But to be in that kind of control without giving anything up, I think he's the starter, Ty.
Yep, I think so.
I think he's the new starter.
Kansas 55, Rutgers 17. Kansas forces 6 turnovers. 3 of which came from our boy King Arthur Sitkowski. 3 picks, but nice effort here from Kansas, 55-17. Kansas State also wins. 41
400 yards on the ground for Kansas. We should mention
400 yards. Okay, sure.
400 yards. Pookie Williams did not have all 400, but hell yeah, Kansas 2-1.
K-State 41, UTSA 17. Nice game for Skylar Thompson.
Rough start for the Roadrunners.
Let's move over to the ACC. We'll talk about Duke beating a Big 12 team. 40-27 over Baylor. I don't have a ton to add here with the exception of Quentin Harris, who filled in admirably for Daniel Jones, who was hurt. Harris had 174 passing and 3 touchdowns, again, as Duke wins by a 40-27 score. We actually both liked Baylor in that game. So
we did. Whoops.
Let's talk about this Syracuse FSU thing.
Yeah.
A sloppy game at first, okay? Maybe the whole way throughout for Florida
I was going to say, when did that change?
15 first half penalties between both teams. They were averaging literally one penalty every 2 minutes. It was an endless stream of whistles and flags in the early going here. Eric Dungey gets hurt late in the second quarter, gives way to a great New York name in Tommy DeVito, a redshirt freshman. He comes in, he looks really good, goes 10 of 16, 144 yards. Most importantly, no turnovers, gets the job done for Cuse at home in a weirdly hot Carrier Dome, which apparently the air doesn't work. They kept doing the thing where Molly McGrath was showing the temperature on the sidelines. Right. They were showing people wiping sweat from their brow in the audience, in the stands. Florida State, Dan, goes 1 of 14 on third downs. They didn't score until late in the fourth quarter. They looked overmatched along their offensive line. They just seemed to be a bit of a tire fire out there. And, even in my wildest dreams, when I predicted 7-5 for this Florida State team during our preview segments in the preseason, even if I felt that to my core, which I did walk back a bit, I never thought they'd look this disorganized. I never thought it would look this bad. But so far, it has really looked this bad. They've beaten Samford, and even that was a bit of a struggle. They're currently sitting at 1-2. What is going on here, man?
Their offensive line is bad. Their offense is bad. Their defense is fine, but if you're on the field most of the game, you're just going to get tired. And to credit Syracuse, Tommy DeVito coming in for Eric Dungey, grungy Eric Dungey, looks to be a revelation, looks to be pretty solid at least.
Great.
May have a higher upside in terms of throwing the ball, not as a complete athlete at quarterback, but looks to be their quarterback of the future. And Florida State's bad. Florida State is a bad team. And maybe last year wasn't, Jimbo gave up on the team and they lost DeAndre Francois. And maybe Jimbo going and getting them to a bowl barely was not the worst thing ever. And they are. If you look at the rest of Florida State's schedule, and, Bud Elliott from, Tomahawk Nation tweeted this out, where are the wins?
Yeah.
NIU has a really good defense, and that's all it might take against this offensive line. They go to Louisville, to Miami, to a not great Wake team, but okay. Clemson, NC State, Notre Dame, a BC team that is surging, and Florida, who's also not that good, but probably enough.
No.
This team could go 3-9. Maybe.
It's remarkable. There is a parallel between Florida State and Nebraska in that both have new coaches and both are starting over in some regards. But the difference is that I feel like Nebraska faithful, who we'll talk about here when we get to the Big Ten, are still very much behind, very excited about the Scott Frost era, willing to give him time. I can imagine if you're a Florida State fan, just being dumbfounded by what you're seeing right now after hearing about how Willie Taggart's the guy and this is the dream job. And, of course you need to give him time to install his system and his players and all that. I get it. But the way that this has looked in the early going has not been very encouraging for Florida State.
Yeah. I can't tell you I'm super sad about it.
Well,
I can't tell you it's
fair
the
enough,
saddest thing I've seen. And here's the other thing too. Willie Taggart left a situation. Forget that he's from Florida. I understand all of the actual human stuff, and I understand Florida State's a not significant upgrade, but an upgrade in terms of the history of the team and the program and what it means to him personally. Willie Taggart left behind a good situation with a top quarterback, a lot of experience on both sides of the ball, and not anywhere near the expectations and questioning. And, he will have room to grow an Oregon team. I don't know how much room he's going to have for this Florida State team if they're not. He's replacing essentially two national championship quarterbacks in Bowden and Jimbo. And so that's the expectation essentially, is a nationally competing program. And they are a marathon away from that. and it brings me no pleasure, Ty. It doesn't. It really, I do this because I have to. Punt, 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 interception, end of half, punt, 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 touchdown. Hey, mercifully, end of game. Ty, I apologize. I did not want to do that.
That might have been the best one you've ever done.
Mercifully.
And all right, let me go through rapid fire here. The rest of the ACC. Clemson wins by 31. Trevor Lawrence got a lot of time after Kelly Bryant left.
Yep.
Miami wins 49-25. Miami actually got out to a 21-0 lead. And the Canes let Toledo come back before they eventually pulled away. 49-25, again, your final.
By the way, Jeff Thomas, total dude. Total dude.
Louisville struggled with Western Kentucky. They trailed by 11 at half. Malik Cunningham seems to have now taken that job from our boy Puma Pass. Louisville wins by a 20-17 score. Pitt beats Georgia Tech 24-19. Their defense did a really nice job against the triple option.
Held on.
And what else? Virginia beats Ohio 45-31 behind 552 yards of offense. And finally in the ACC, Boston College 41, Wake Forest 34. They played this one early on a Thursday evening. And we've got multiple dudes here with Anthony Brown, 304 and 5 touchdowns through the air, and A.J. Dillon, 185 and a touchdown on the ground. Boston College looks pretty dang good, Dan, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and Jeff Smith through the air looks really, really impressive. And BC right now, because of also what they did defensively, and they got after Sam Hartman a good amount, schedule's pretty good.
Yes, it is.
Schedule's pretty good. I know they have Virginia Tech, Miami, Clemson, I think, and Florida State all in a row. Florida State's fine. We really don't know much about Virginia Tech, but in terms of what their schedule looks like moving forward, and that's what Purdue, Temple, NC State, Louisville until that run, and they finish with Syracuse at the end of the year. BC's going to beat somebody pretty good. They're going to beat somebody flat out good, and I'm excited to keep watching this Eagles team.
All right, real quick before we hammer through the SEC and the rest of the Big Ten, don't forget that Indochino is the most exciting menswear company.
Oh my gosh!
World.
Yes.
They make suits and shirts to your exact measurements for an unparalleled fit and comfort. All of it's available in a wide selection of high-quality fabrics and colors with the option to personalize details like your lapel, your lining, your pockets, your buttons. Get your own monogram on there, Dan. We've had so many people who have done the Indochino thing for a wedding who have written into the show thanking us for offering this promotional deal. They make good stuff, Dan. They make good stuff. They're even expanding now into casual clothing with made-to-measure chinos. So really cashing in that whole Indochino.
I love that chino life, Ty.
It's quickly going to become your go-to pant. You can pair it easily with anything from a suit jacket to a sweater. Perfect for any time of the year, any occasion, from the boardroom to your Sunday brunch. Available now for an introductory price of just $79. You can get any premium Indochino suit for $359 at Indochino.com. Enter the code SOLID at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price. A made-to-measure premium suit. Shipping's always free. Go to Indochino.com. Use the promo code SOLID. Get any premium Indochino suit for just $359 in free shipping. An incredible deal for a premium made-to-measure suit. Also, don't forget to check out our good friends over at Robinhood, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Robinhood's an investing app. It lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. Plus, with a simple and intuitive design, it presents data in an easy-to-digest way. It's a non-intimidating way to get into the stock market if you're looking to invest for the first time and have confidence doing it, which I think is important. It takes 4 taps on your smartphone to place a trade. Not to mention, Robinhood lets you discover new stocks and track favorite companies with a personalized news feed. You can even get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Unlike all the other brokerages, there are no commission fees. You can trade stocks. You can keep all of your profits because at Robinhood, they are striving to make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy, Dan. Robinhood is giving our listeners a free stock. I'm choking.
It's
a free
overwhelming
stock. You can get a free stock like Apple, like Ford, like Sprint to help build your portfolio. You can get that if you sign up at solid.robinhood.com. All right, so solid.robinhood.com. Check them out. I've been playing around on there. They do a really good job. A fun way to get in on investing if it's something you're interested in. Solid.robinhood.com. Let's move quickly through the remainder of our action here from week 3. Let's go to the Big Ten. I'm going to rifle through these, okay? Stop me and tell me if you've got anything of note. Penn State 63, Kent State 10.
Good lines. Penn State has good lines against bad teams.
Michigan 45, SMU 20.
No, Karan Higdon. Offense had moments. Defense had moments, but big questions, I think, still linger based on their performance against SMU. Also, Prochet, I want to say, James Prochet for SMU, unheralded dude at receiver.
Iowa 38, Northern Iowa 14. Another solid defensive effort for Iowa is my takeaway. It looked really good. And a big one for them next Saturday night when Wisconsin comes to town. We'll talk about that one on Wednesday. Minnesota 26, Miami, Ohio 3. A big game for freshman Bryce Williams, 176 in total yardage for Minnesota.
Yes, and schedule shaping up nicely with what the rest of the Big Ten is now looking like. Minnesota, a nice 3-0 with definite comfortable bowl potential.
Can they beat Nebraska and Indiana and Illinois and Purdue and Northwestern? I'm not saying 8-4, but it's not as crazy as you think for Minnesota.
Trending in the right direction.
Yes. Temple 35, Maryland 14. I sent a text message to Taylor. And I said, what's going on here? Is Maryland playing the subs? What's up? Quote, complete tire fire. They can't do anything on offense. Temple's stuffing the run. Hill can't pass. Defense hasn't looked good and gave up 2 big plays. Temple scored on a fake punt in the first quarter. Bad all around. Anything to add, Dan?
No, I mean, it might be week 3 malaise. It's just everybody's a little bit eager to start the conference schedule. Maryland, but just thoroughly outclassed by a Temple team with talent. And I've liked Raquel Armstead for a long time. But Maryland, total mess yesterday.
Troy 24, Nebraska 19. An ugly game. 20 total penalties, 10 for each sides. 5 total turnovers in this football game. Going to have to wait another week for Scott Frost's first win in Lincoln.
Yeah, they don't start Adrian Martinez. They're a mess on special teams. Defensively, they were fine because Troy had, I believe it was a punt return touchdown, an impressive one. So they give up under 20, the black shirts do. And Nebraska, I saw this everywhere, and I didn't understand its significance. 0-2 for the first time since 1957. And I don't know why that is a surprise. I don't know why. Okay. I mean, they should have beat Akron week 1. But Akron is now having its way with the Big Ten West. So Nebraska's 0-2. There's a good chance they will be exciting and electric at some point. It's not a certainty, but they started Andrew Bunch at quarterback, and it's what Nebraska is right now in the present tense, and we anticipate growth.
Indiana 38, Ball State 10. Another nice game for Stevie Scott on the ground.
Yeah, your guy.
USF 25, Illinois 19. USF was down by 12 early in the fourth quarter. Blake Barnett rallied the troops, had a nice game in the very end as South Florida knocks off Illinois in Soldier Field. And finally, we had Missouri knocking off Purdue by a 40-37 score. This was actually a fun back and forth game.
It was amazing.
Tucker McCann boots a 25-yarder at the gun to win it for Missouri. Nice game for David Blau, who had 572 and 3 touchdowns in a losing effort, rivaling De'Ara King for the honors here.
Did you see the pass that ricocheted off the helmet of the Missouri safety? And I don't think it was a touchdown, but it was basically going to be, a really good defensive play that turned into like a 65-yard catch.
Yes, I saw.
For Purdue. David Blau and Drew Lock, both with nice games. Nice back and forth of this game. Missouri really did try to give this one away, but Drew Lock is really good. Drew Lock is very, very good. Roundtree was very good. And if you did not see this game, go back and watch highlights or do whatever you got to do, because this game got weird. It was good.
All right. Not a lot of competition in the SEC, but I'm going to run through it very quickly. Georgia 49, Middle Tennessee 7. I did notice that the Georgia box scores are starting to look very Alabama-y.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ball carriers, a lot of different contributors, but an impressive 42-point win. We had Kentucky with a 38-point win. They're off to a nice 3-0 start by knocking off Murray State. We had Tennessee struggling a little bit, but eventually pulling away 24-0 over UTEP. Okay, Florida 48, Colorado State 10. Dan, I'm not sure if Florida looked any better along the lines. That was their problem against Kentucky. It's just that Colorado State is not as good of a team, hence the 38-point W.
Yeah, I can just tell you, Richard was yelling less. Richard Johnson.
Good. That's good.
When he was watching this game, it was more centered on why is Dan Mullen calling back shoulder passes for Felipe Franks when he is not completing and able to complete back shoulder passes. So that was where everything was. And by the way, Ty, before it slips my mind, because we briefly mentioned Northwestern losing to Akron.
Yeah.
The first Akron win over a Big Ten team since 1894.
That's a long
Last
time.
night I was told by Jody with an I that her best friend's boyfriend, who is a diehard Northwestern fan, has decided not to attend a wedding because Northwestern Notre Dame is too important to miss.
Whoa.
Let me tell you something. Weddings might have good hors d'oeuvres. Weddings might have a good playlist. Weddings might have a sweet dance floor. Weddings might have an awesome open bar. The upside of Northwestern Notre Dame after yesterday became a lot lower. Go to the wedding. Please go to the wedding.
I skipped over that game on my list here. I'm having list trouble the last two shows, but
you're okay. I'm
39-34 was the score in that Akron W over Northwestern. I tuned this one out when it was 21-3 at half. And then I woke up this morning bright and early to do research. And I was like, wait, they lost? How did they
36
lose?
second half points.
Oh, man. All right.
Just a bunch of kids from Akron.
That's right. We talked about Florida, Mississippi State with an impressive win. Nick Fitzgerald had 6 touchdowns. Texas A&M wins by 38. They've got a road tilt next week against Alabama, which we'll preview on our Wednesday show. We had North Texas 44, Arkansas 17. You called this one, Dan.
Solid verbal bump.
Arkansas quarterbacks had 6 interceptions in this football game, including 4 thrown by the monstrous Cole Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the South Carolina Marshall game was canceled.
If we can, because I feel like we have a disproportionately cool group of North Texas and Mean Green fans. I guess it's the same thing. Mason Fine, really good.
Yeah.
Had moments where he struggled. Did you see the fake fair catch touchdown?
Awesome.
First of all, just the punting in general in this game. The Mean Green punter was amazing, but if you miss the fair catch touchdown, it sounds like it would be an impossible thing because you should be able to call a fair catch or not. He didn't even indicate anything with his arms, but he did that little hop back like you would after catching the ball. I think it was Keegan, I forget his last name. I wanted to say Keegan Bradley, but it is not that. And it was amazing. Arkansas just pulled up, assuming he called a fair catch. He just ran through the entire field. So great for North Texas and Arkansas. We have to come up with some sort of, I know a lot of people do like the bottom 10 or something like that. We need to figure out some sort of betting pool to like a race to 4.
Okay.
4 wins.
Okay.
Arkansas, UCLA, Florida State, Nebraska, whoever. We have to get that race going.
All right. We can figure that out.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about Notre Dame, Vandy?
I want to talk about what you received text message wise as a descriptor for Notre Dame and how they've performed these past couple weeks.
Man, I don't even know where to start with this team. They're 3-0, and the defense is very good. I have many pet peeves with the way that folks out there on the internet have talked about Notre Dame. Now, to be fair, Notre Dame won 22-17. If you watched any of the game day coverage beforehand, Kirk Herbstreit raised some eyebrows by picking Vandy to win this game outright.
And you know what? Not a terrible pick.
No, I mean, it was
In
aggressive.
retrospect.
It was aggressive, but I get it. Plus, he lives in Nashville, and maybe it earned him a free dinner at the local Greasy Spoon. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's my beef, all right? So we've got one group of people who seem to think that the Notre Dame defense has some fault in what we've seen so far. And, sure, in spots, they've been a little flimsier than I would have liked. But ultimately, if you're giving up 17 points a game with the offense that Notre Dame has, just the talent that Notre Dame has on offense, this should not even be in question. 17 points a game is very good. Very good by defensive
I think it's
standards.
even less. I think it's 14 because it was a kick return touchdown against Michigan. So they're even better than what you're considering to be very good. Yeah.
They've been very good. Their defensive backs have been superb in the early part of this season. Defense is not the trouble. I question the offense here. And, it all comes back to Wimbush. I think there are some folks out there who think I'm being overly harsh on him. Reasonable minds can disagree. He just hasn't gotten any better.
Okay.
He hasn't gotten any better.
Is he beat up, do you think?
If he isn't yet, he will be. Because what's going to happen...
I saw people speculating that he might be. Yeah.
What's going to happen is, as they get into these games against better competition, he's going to have no choice but to run if they want to gain yards. Right now, they're trying this thing. I'm convinced they're trying something where they're trying to keep him in the pocket, develop him on the job, get him a little bit more comfortable as a pocket presence. In the bigger games, like in 2 weeks when they play Stanford, he's going to run. He's going to run.
Sure.
And in these bigger games, if they want to stay undefeated, he's going to have to run.
Possibly intentional, possibly for his life.
Right. He's going to get beat up in those instances. And that's when it gets interesting if, in fact, something happens to him and he can't play. I don't know. But my point here is this. We saw Ian Book in this game, and we've seen him in a couple games now where he comes in for these ultra short yardage situations. The coaching staff has spun this as, well, we want to play to everyone's strengths.
Okay.
If Brandon Wimbush can't throw a 5-yard play action pass, what exactly are his strengths, Dan?
Well, I would assume at this point, because Notre Dame has won a lot of games.
As a quarterback, though, if you have to bring someone else in,
sure,
to throw a 5-yard play action pass, what are your strengths as a quarterback? I don't care about running. As a passer, what are your strengths if they don't trust you to throw a 5-yard play action pass?
Well, if they don't trust Ian Book to be demonstrably better than somebody who struggles with basic things, what might that say about Ian Book?
Fair point. That's a fair point.
So at least Brandon Wimbush offers other things that Book may not. And yeah, Notre Dame has a problem of, I think basically they come out really well and then everything just slows to a crawl on offense. And I know Tony Jones has sort of emerged.
Tony Jones
on
Jr.
the ground.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Which you would think help Brandon Wimbush or whoever's in at quarterback, take some attention away from the passing game. He was like all purpose good, right? He was good through the air.
He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, he's not Josh Adams, but he's good.
He's fine. And the other thing is the line is still coming together. That's still a work in progress. You lost 2 top 10 NFL draft picks on the left side of your line. What do you think is going to happen, Ty? Right? So that's all fair criticism, and I get it. If I'm harsh on Wimbush, then so be it. It just does not feel to me like this is a top 10 caliber team at this point.
No.
I threw it out there on Twitter, and I got the best response I've ever seen in my life when I said, what's a good way to phrase a team that is just secretly overrated? Because we've done the secretly decent and the secret garbage thing before. We need new material. Props to Elliot on Twitter, not West Coast Elliot, a different Elliot, who came back with the retort of scented trash bag.
I like how you said, we're going to get away from secret trash, and we are now scented trash.
Scented trash bag.
Tropical trash.
Is how I feel about Notre Dame's offense right now.
So like a pineapple that is rotted on the inside, but you can't really tell at the supermarket.
They win 22-17. Vanderbilt had chances. Lord knows they had chances to win this game. Wasn't a bad pick by Herbie. Notre Dame, again, holding on. They are going to do this thing where they make me sweat it out every week, and they can't pull away from anyone in the fourth quarter. But A win's a win. They've got ample opportunities now ahead of them to keep this train moving forward. Hopefully they improve on offense and can take out some of the bigger teams on their schedule. But we'll see. I don't know.
I texted, by the way, a friend of mine who played at Vanderbilt at the very end of this game, and I knew he wasn't watching because he has a couple little kids. And I texted him like, if you can, turn on NBC, Vandy driving to win. And he texted me back, I only have Gamecast, and that's enough. So even Vanderbilt fans were like, yeah, maybe there'll be another. I don't know. Who cares?
All right. Well, that does it for this week, Dan. Do we have some dudes very quickly that we like to shout out?
Please.
All right, read them off. Who we got?
Real quickly, Tua Tagovailoa. Tyler Sumter, the Troy punter, all the punting for Troy, returning and punting itself. We mentioned Alan Bowman, British comedy legend and Texas Tech star at quarterback as a freshman. Jeff Thomas, all of Kansas, come on. Travis Etienne, I know it wasn't a huge opponent, but had a nice day for Clemson. Oklahoma State's defensive line. Dicker the kicker for Texas once again. Nick Bosa. Jordan Ellis, the combination, Jordan Ellis and Olamide Zaccheaus. I really hope I got that right. But you mentioned, the 500 yards plus for Virginia as that game got moved to Nashville against the Bobcats of Ohio. But Virginia with Ohio's a pretty good team. Virginia with a well-timed good game for the Hoos. So cool to see. That combination should be not done destroying defenses.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone for calling in to 408-VERBAL-1 and leaving us your voice messages. Don't forget, we're back with a preview show for Week 4. Some intriguing matchups that we need to discuss on Wednesday evening. In the meantime, we're found out at solidverbal.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to check out the subreddit if you're a fan of the show. Started by Verballers for Verballers out at reddit.com/r/solidverbal. And one final housekeeping note, if you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, which you can find on our website, now would be a good time to do that because we're going to be sending out our newsletter this week, introducing, I believe, some new merchandise. Is that right?
Hell yeah, we are. Absolutely,
we got some new shirts that are in the pipeline. Excited to roll those out. You can also find our store out at solidverbal.com/store. Right now, we've got the Icon shirt, the popular Icon shirt.
Love that.
As well as the new Solid Verbal dad hat available for the masses.
I love our shirts so much that even though it's pretty cheesy to wear a shirt of your own podcast, still in my rotation, comfortably in my rotation. I love them.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks again for tuning into the show. We'll catch you all on Wednesday. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.